happened at Emory?
Talk to
I can't, I can't, I can't almost say it. Somebody wrote pro-Trump messages on the sidewalk in chalk. And I swear to God, the kids went apeshit.
It seemed in chalk as permanent as we thought his run for president was
right.
going to be.
One student said, "I legitimately feared for my life. I thought we were having a KK. I thought we were having a KK rally, KK on campus."
What were the messages?
Yeah.
Just Trump, like Trump in
Just the
26
word?
in chalk.
Oh my God.
Another one. I'm supposed to feel comfortable and safe, but this man, Trump, is being supported by students on our campus, as is their right in a democracy. And our administration shows by their silence they support it as well. I don't deserve to feel afraid at my school. I so badly want to drop kick these kids.
Here we go, yo. Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario? Here we go, yo. Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario? Hey, yo.
What's going on, Tone?
Not much, Herschel. Great to be recording again. This is Realtalk, Beyond the Headlines. For those of you that don't know, always repping out of Atlanta. We have Tunde and Herschel.
Coming at you live and direct.
Yes. And there's only one thing, one rule, one regulation that we have for this podcast for ourselves. And if you ever so happen to be a guest, is to keep it real. We keep it real. And today we're talking about something pretty real. This is one of our podcasts, very few podcasts that don't talk about sports at all. I don't think we'll be touching on sports at all today because we'll be touching on Herschel.
So, very recently at our alma mater, Emory University, there was an act of support of Trump, I guess I would describe it as. There were hundreds of chalkings of Trump 2016, Make America Great Again, Build a Wall, Trumpisms like that all across the university's campus, stemming, going from, the library to student centers to the medical school, pretty much encompassing the entire campus. And what this has done is kind of created this vibe on campus and this divide between the minority students and the general body. There have been activists and protesters speaking with Emory University's president, who's also actually made a statement. So it's kind of a big deal.
So it is kind of a big deal, Herschel. Personally, when I first heard about this, I thought it was kind of funny because the whole Trump character, the Trump campaign has been a little funny for me recently. Not so much because he's actually winning now, and he's closer to becoming president. But it's always been a caricature of a person. It's just hilarious. It's kind of like can't even take it seriously, but because of the reaction on campus and also because of the excessiveness of this, like over 100 chalkings. I mean, that took some time. I'm starting to think that, maybe it's not funny and maybe it's more serious. I would like to say that there does seem to be a lot of focus on this being some sort of racial thing, which I think may be unwarranted. What do you think?
Honestly, I think if I was on campus when this occurred, I may have had a similar reaction because I'm thinking about it now and I would be upset if I had to walk past this on my way to classes every single day. For me, Emory was an incredible experience, but I am not blind to the fact that there were a lot of racial undertones and things that occurred around the campus that weren't necessarily overt, that really were racially motivated. So to be honest, to be real, I don't know how far I would go in terms of my reaction. I know I would be upset, but I don't know if I would go so far as to protest, because I do feel there are a lot of other instances and issues around campus, around Atlanta, around America that deserve much more attention than something like this. I definitely remember the last time we had a racial issue on Emory's campus. The last couple of times, actually. One of them dealing with the president, but the most recent was about 2 years ago or so. There was a student who spray painted, didn't just chalk, but spray painted swastikas on the pillars outside of one of the Jewish frat houses on Emory's campus, and the campus flipped a shit. I don't know if that has a lot. Well, it definitely has a lot to do with Emory's high Jewish population, and let's be real, the money that Emory is getting from those students and students' families versus the. Are we up to 10% now at Emory in terms of black and brown students?
Maybe. I know when we were there, it's like 7 or 8%, so it could be 10% about nowadays.
Well, anyway, I know at that time the campus, immediately, got into action mode to make it right with those who felt hurt. Now, yes, that situation was much more serious than this one. But the instance even before then that truly speaks of the racial undertones was a speech that Emory University's president, President James Wagner, gave addressing the entire school. So what this guy did was he essentially made a comparison for compromise. He was discussing how being a liberal arts institution, one of the greatest things we can do is compromise on, issues that will help us move forward as a society, as a community. What the example he used was the 3/5 compromise. And if I can remind everybody, this was the proposal that Lincoln gave to the South to have slaves and black people in general in the South, their votes count as 3/5 as opposed to a real person. The South wanted none, and the North wanted 100% voting because it would, be more in favor of the North. And the compromise that was proposed was the 3/5 compromise. That is a terrible compromise. Obviously, it didn't go into effect, and the fact that Emory's president would allude to that as a positive was mind-boggling. And there were protests on campus and activist groups set up and mobilized, I guess I would say. And the president did come out and apologize and make statements, but the president is still there. Emory has swept that essentially under the rug. It's been forgotten about. It's been washed and wiped from the history books. I'm afraid this, even though this Trump instance is even less of an issue than what the president of the university who represents the university said. But I think this is going to be another thing that just goes into that column of, racially motivated aggressions against minorities at Emory. Black and Hispanic minorities, I guess I would say. And at the end of the day, isn't that what Trump is all about?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Herschel. That, I hope our listeners can gain a little bit of insight to what kind of campus school Emory is, with, that story of the president and his 3/5 compromise. The point, though, is that Emory University is a university that has, some racial undertones, microaggressions. There's a little bit of a divide amongst the students, the minority students, and I guess the majority students, which probably is why there is been such a huge reaction for this Trump incident. Basically a lot of students are protesting the president, the leaders of the university, and some people are using words like they feel attacked. They feel like they are in a hostile campus that is unaccepting of them. And personally, I just, I see this as, a really egregious instance of someone being very ignorant. It's hard for me to just go on and say that it's racially charged, and that's one thing I really have about a problem that I have about the people who are reacting. Trump has made a lot of misogynistic comments. The reaction hasn't necessarily taken a form of like, this is also an attack against women on campus. Mm-hmm. So I don't like how it's just become like a racial thing. again, to me, this is, first of all, it was kind of funny. You know, like I don't know who would spend all their time except maybe like a drunk frat kid writing Trump all over campus. You know, was it an actual racist who did this? I don't know, but I just can't see them wasting their time doing that. So it's kind of funny to me. That's my initial reaction. But, you know, I don't like how it's taking on this racial beast. You know, I think it's more of we're living on a campus where people are supporting this egregious and horrible presidential candidate who's also winning the Republican primaries right now.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. You know, if I was on campus, I would be like,
Right.
wow, I can't believe people on campus are supporting this fool. As opposed to, I can't believe people are writing Trump all over the campus and also build a wall.
Taking it as an aggression against you personally.
As an aggression against minorities.
Yeah.
I feel like it's more an aggression against people who are open and accepting of others and who are also not like racist misogynists. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
You touched a little bit on the people's reaction and also what you would have reacted like on campus at Emory. How do you take their reaction now? I mean, it's quite an excessive one, and it's been featured on the news. There was a show, the nightly show with Larry Wilmore. It was featured on that. Larry Wilmore was kind of gaining some humor from it. He considered it a little bit excessive too, and they cracked jokes about it on the show. I mean, how do you feel like?
Yeah, I definitely think it was excessive. There really isn't any reason to protest because there's no reason for them, for these activists to say that this was the university that endorsed Trump. This was just another student who happened to have a different opinion than these students did. That's where I really see an issue with the protesters, the activists. What are they looking to change? Yes, this chalker, this serial chalker broke Emory policy by writing on buildings and had an incredibly unpopular opinion. But college is absolutely a place where people should come together and share opinions. So I would hate to. I don't support the protesters and activists. I think it's too much, too far. I think you do much better at fighting something like this by, at the end of the day, voting for somebody else. Hopefully the media giving somebody else more coverage and Trump less, because they're just blasting it down our throats. And this is just an addition to that. This is another reason for the media to put Trump on the news, because Emory's activists, you know, air quotes, are, you know, got their panties in a bunch.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, okay, so I think their side of things, the activists, the protesters, is that the environment on campus is one that is sort of treats minorities as minorities, you know, and how America treats minorities, and sort of a lesser group of people that are not treated equally. You know, maybe the laws don't say that, but inside culture, they're treated less so, unequally. You know, I think that's the environment that the students at Emory are trying to change. So they're protesting this sort of thing because they want it to be known that they don't accept this on campus.
So let me ask you this. Since we have this reaction about Emory's protesters, and I know we weren't even planning on making this about sports today, but I just actually thought of a great example that's another comparison that I want to hear your opinion about. This past college football season, the Missouri football players protested and decided to sit out a game, and their reasoning was racial aggressions on campus. And aside from what the news told us, there's no way for us here at home to verify that, you know, oh, well, all this, that was happening. We have the direct experience at Emory, and for me, I feel like I can directly compare there. But do you think the activists at Emory and how they're being taken is watering down what the Missouri activists were able to do? Because they got a president fired.
Right. Well, I'll say this, you know, despite how I feel about these protesters and these activists, if you feel a certain kind of way, regardless of how that is, and you feel like you're being treated unfairly and unequally, as those Missouri football players felt, you need to do something about it. So Tunde probably wouldn't have felt as they do. probably wouldn't have done anything. But if you feel like you are being treated unfairly, or you're living on a hostile campus that sort of is looking down and treating your group of people unfairly, then do something about it. And I support them. And to answer your question, I wouldn't say it's watering it down, because it's still adding to a cause, the overall cause of finding true equality in this country as a black person, or a minority person, or a brown person. So I don't think it's watering it down. And, if you feel a certain kind of way, I definitely think you should stand up. But, again, I'll just say, like, I feel like it's such a minor incident of whatever.
And this, for you, I feel like it's coming from, you didn't feel this way when you were at Emory, correct?
Yeah. I mean, that's the truth, I'll say this. I think because of my background as an African person, I'm not fully aware of racism in America, of how black people experience racism on a regular basis. I'm not fully aware of things like microaggressions. So during my time at Emory, I always felt like I was just another person. I never felt I was held back in any manner. I felt like everything was up to my own willpower, whether it be grades or participating in organizations. I didn't think that I was being held back in any fashion because I was a black person. Other people would absolutely disagree with that, and I can probably only think of like one instance where I truly felt some sort of racial aggression, microaggression, whatever. Other than that, like I always felt like I was an equal person on campus, and the only thing that made me different from others was things that I could control myself, my own willpower, as far as academia or social life, that sort of thing.
Yo, so to keep it real, in the past, Emory has done a lot of great things to move closer to racial equality. And it is an uphill battle, because there's always going to be somebody with a different opinion that's going to come and, fight back against the system. But I do want to say that I, for the most part, always felt comfortable and welcome at Emory. There were, a few more times than just one or two for me that I did feel personal racial aggressions. Actually, I'll tell you one story. So I was essentially late for this meeting, and I was dressed up, full suit. This was the winter time, so it was about 6 or 7 o'clock, but it had started to get dark outside. I was kind of late for this meeting and jogging across campus, and I'm well dressed. I'm like, suited and booted essentially. And there was a white woman in front of me, and I'm kind of have a quicker pace, and she turns around and like pulls out her phone and starts kind of frantically having a phone call in front of me. I wasn't close enough to hear what she was saying, but as I started to get closer, I realized what was going on, and I had to stop and think like, wow, did this really just happen to me? Did she think I was going to attack her? And I guess that also may speak to how women feel in terms of being safe on campus as well. So I don't want to make that an entirely racial thing, but it boggled my mind at the time. That was one of the first times in my young life where I felt like somebody felt like I was a bad guy, and I hate that feeling. Nobody likes that feeling. I think Donald Trump is going to be our next president.
What? How could you possibly think that? Hillary Clinton is going to be our next president because she's going to smash Trump.
Now, I'm not saying that to say I'm endorsing Trump.
I know.
I'm saying that because I think that silent majority in America that has been supporting him, that fascination that we all seem to have with Trump, and for a lot of people, I think it's gonna boil down to, not voting for Hillary, because there are a lot of people who are polarized against her as well. I think it's gonna swing Trump's way because of popular opinion, and his opinions are unpopular, and that opinion is unpopular. Shout out to our unpopular opinion segment, but that's what I believe. That's a bold prediction right there. That's what that is. Donald Trump is gonna be our next president. There's nothing we can do to stop him now. There are no brakes on this train.
Your entire argument is very legitimate. I don't want to believe it because I think that Hillary Clinton, I will say this, I think Bernie probably would get smashed by Trump because he's also really polarizing. You know, he's
true.
basically the opposite of Trump. As far as like, well, he's more the opposite of Ted Cruz, but as far as like acceptable candidates,
Thank God Ted Cruz dropped out. BT Dubs. Wait, has he dropped out? He hasn't dropped out yet.
no, not Ted Cruz.
Well,
Ted Cruz has a chance. He has a chance.
Did he win? Okay. My bad. I'm uninformed, ill-informed.
You need to listen to Real Talk Beyond the Headlines, bro.
I do. Goddamn. But go ahead, man. Tell me more. You were discussing the chance Bernie has, and actually, bruh, you think Ted Cruz has a chance
To win the presidency?
to win the candidacy
He's not.
and then the presidency?
He's not, too far behind Trump. I mean, I think a lot of people are saying that Trump has pretty much already won it, but I don't think it's over. I mean, Cruz definitely still has a chance. I think Rubio dropped out.
Yes.
But I would say Cruz probably has a good chance against Hillary because he is like a true Republican. Like he's a Republican. He's a conservative. There are plenty of people who vote Republican and are conservative, enough to elect the president. I just feel like Trump is just too egregious of a candidate, a potential president, that people would, think correctly and vote for Hillary. But if it came down to Hillary versus Ted Cruz, it would be basically Democrats versus Republicans, and Republicans can't show up. But I think Republicans will convert to Hillary if Trump wins because he's a lunatic. He's nuts,
So you kind of alluded to, people would be smart and vote for the best candidate or Hillary or Bernie or whomever they think the best candidate is.
Yeah.
I think you're underestimating how many stupid people there are in America. I think there are a lot of people out here who are just, I'm going with Trump. I'm understating this, but or I'm overstating this, but based off the strength of hearing about Trump all the time and just, whatever media they might, be constantly consuming, they're going to choose Trump. And these people who are already choosing Trump are going to continue to choose Trump. Do you feel like Ted Cruz voters, when he doesn't win this primary or win the candidacy, are going to vote for Trump?
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think so. I think some will. I think the Republicans who have got him to this point will. But, if you're just a person casting a vote, you have to think, is Trump a true Republican? Or let me say that again. If you're a Republican casting a vote, is Trump going to help you realize your Republican or conservative ideals? And I don't think that's true. I think Trump is just a lunatic, and he's going to help people realize their lunatic ideals. A true Republican can't possibly think that Trump is going to help them move towards a more conservative country.
Do you think Trump thinks his ideas are crazy, or do you think everything he says is feasible? He thinks everything he says is feasible. Does he believe himself? Do you think he believes himself?
I honestly just think that Trump is trying to increase his Trump brand by running for president, but he has somehow been able to start winning, and he's just going with it. I think he probably believes like half, maybe less than half of what he actually is saying. So
Really?
I can't take him seriously. I don't think that he's truly his character as a presidential candidate, and I don't know, man. I just don't think that Trump truly really cares for anything, honestly. He's just saying what he needs to get votes. So, yeah, I think we had a pretty good discussion. This is part 1. Part 2, we're just going to try to have a couple guests on.
Yeah, try to have some different opinions in here.
Definitely of Emory students, past and present, maybe. I don't know, we'll see. But basically, this is our alma mater. We felt like we had a comment on it. We hope you like the podcast. Real Talk Beyond the Headlines is what we go by. Definitely, if you have an opinion, leave us some comments.
Hit us up on Twitter, please.
Yeah. And also, this is a real question, but if there are any people who are definitely going to vote for Trump in the primary or the overall election, please leave us a comment if you would like to come support your opinion on this podcast, because if you were voting for Trump, then you are a loser. Yeah.